Welcome to another Dove Valley Deep Divers special. Joining me tonight or today, whenever you happen to be watching this, is the one and only Lance Sanderson, who unfortunately has not been able to join me on Dove Valley Deep Divers, and not to rub this into your face at all, Lance, Kenneth has been a great co-host. It's been a joy talking with him on Friday nights. I know a lot of viewers miss you. I know I miss having the conversations, but at least we get these videos. How you doing, man? What are your thoughts on the Broncos preseason so far?
Dude, thanks for having me. It's always a blast to be able to sit down and talk football with you. I listened to the show with Kenneth a couple days ago. That was a great episode. He's fun. He's funny. There's a lot of good vibes that come out of him. Got to work some chemistry, but it's okay. You guys will figure it out. It's only a couple shows in. We'll get there. It took us what 5 years before we finally actually had an idea of what we were doing. But no,
did we ever figure it out?
You might be right on that, but no, doing good. I'm very excited because I wrote an article following the Green Bay Packers game talking about just like 3 players up, 3 players down, and specifically the first one I wanted to highlight here is Bo Nix, because obviously, the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. He's going to be the guy moving forward. He's the franchise quarterback of the future. And he has answered every bell so far. So to me, that is one of those things that really gives me a lot of optimism for this season, and then also for the future, because this season, I don't think the Broncos are really going to be a very competitive team. I still think they have a depth issue, a lack of talent overall throughout the roster. It's still a good football team. Don't get me wrong. I think they're about as good as they were last year. But at the same time, they have a direction now, and that gives me a lot of optimism for the future, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very promising what we've seen from Bo Nix. He's definitely answered the call of that he should be the starting quarterback. Has it been perfect? No. But nobody was expecting perfection out of him in the preseason games that we've had. And I get there is some concern about how he hasn't played very many starters because, the Packers, they rested them, the Colts, by the time he came in and so on and so forth. So we know that he hasn't really played starters, but he's still showing poise and control. He showed improvement from game to game. Like, it's all key things that you want to go and see improve. But we can sit here and we can spend hours talking about what Bo Nix hasn't done as other guys how they look in preseason, which that's what we're going to do. Not hours, but we're going to spend about another 10 minutes or so talking about this. But we're going to try to bring up some guys who may not be getting the attention that they deserve with their play in this preseason. The hidden gems, so to speak, of this Broncos preseason. And for me, the first one has to be the guy who has been the best player on the Broncos offensive line, and that is DeMontre Jacobs.
Yeah.
Last year, when you watch his preseason, I went back and watched his preseason from 2023 last year, came away still shocked that he made the practice squad last year. It was terrible. The technique was all over the place, balance issues, strength issues. But this year, when I look at him and I watch him, his body type looks different.
Yeah.
He seems like with his weight seems cleaner, and the technique is so vastly improved. Now, he's not facing the toughest guy, so that is a caveat here. He's doing great things, dominating essentially against, third, fourth stringers, some second stringers every now and then. But for the most part, I mean, not for the most part, but it's been great to see because of where he was at last year, facing the same kind of players, those third, fourth stringers, and not facing any second stringers. Vastly improvement. I think he is squarely in the battle to make this roster at tackle. And based off of what we've seen, I mean, I don't think he's going to be the backup swing tackle, but if they keep 4 tackles, it will be hard for it to not be Jacobs.
Well, and you're absolutely right here, dude, because last year his footwork was so sloppy and he lacked knee bend. He lacked bend in his waist. He was really high chested, and the technique was just so bad. This year his feet are a lot smoother. They're still choppy. There's some definite foot placement issues that he's struggling with, but he's not bending over at his waist and leaning into contact. He's receiving contact a lot better. His hand placement is a bunch better. His play strength in the running game, he's been one of the best people movers on the Broncos offensive line when it comes to in the running game, specifically as the games get late. I mean, in that game against the Green Bay Packers, Tyler Beatty had a big run, I believe. down the left sideline where Demontre Jacobs had a linebacker 5 or 6 yards down the field and was just driving him completely out of the play. Absolutely spectacular work from him. It's a great player to bring up here because not a whole lot of people are really talking about him. Again, this is the hidden gems kind of thing. And to me, the biggest turnaround, like you said, it's the technical aspect of him. And I think that another caveat, this is a terrible thing to really kind of bring up, but at the same time, it's also true here. Demontre Jacobs, while he has that opportunity to really latch on this roster, if they do keep a fourth tackle, a big part of that is because Quinn Bailey did get hurt in training camp, and that opened up an opportunity for him to really shine. And he has taken advantage of that opportunity to step up, just play consistently. At least in the preseason action we've seen him, he has played very consistently. He has been one of the, like you said, one of the best offensive linemen, if not the best offensive lineman. Shout out to my guy here, Calvin Throckmorton at guard has been freaking spectacular. This dude has been another people mover, a guy that's been consistently strong in the running game. So I'll just bring up him in terms of an under the radar guy that's not getting talked about nearly as much. I think he is going to be your backup swing guard. He's going to play that left or right guard. He is definitely going to be the guy, and people need to pay attention to him. But Demontre Jacobs, dude, that's a good shout. I really appreciate you for bringing him up.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned Quinn Bailey. Even though he was an interior offensive lineman, they used him as that sixth lineman so often, and him getting hurt, it opened up a door for a player like Jacobs to step in. And is he going to see a lot of snaps this year as that sixth lineman? No, I think Quinn Bailey saw like 20 snaps total last year.
Right.
So it's not a lot, but it's still something that you still need. It is still the offense that Sean Payton runs that you need. And then going to Calvin Throckmorton, I mean, his play has been great. I remember writing, I think it was after the Packers game, when I was doing my grades for it, I put in there is he a starting quality guard in the NFL? No, I think he's shown enough to where, okay, this isn't a consistent enough guy to be a starter, but he can be a pretty good quality a backup swing guy. I want to see him flip side because I believe that he's only played on the left side so far.
Yep.
I want to see him play on that right side because not everybody can flip sides.
Yep.
So I want to see that, and I think that is one of the reasons why I wouldn't say he's the best offensive lineman. Is we haven't seen him flip sides a little bit. Demontre Jacobs, we have, but I mean it's splitting hairs here. These two have been great, and even though he's not a hidden gem, Matt Pert has been looking really good this preseason as well. But we're gonna flip the page over to the defensive side of the ball. And for some hidden gems on that side. And I don't know how big of a hidden gem he is, but Justin Strnad, I mean, he missed the game against the Colts, came against the Packers, and he has looked great in his play in this preseason. And he's a guy that we know he's going to be a good contributor on special teams. But with the concerns at linebacker, they need somebody to step up because neither Cody Barton or Jonas Griffith have really said, hey, I am this other starting linebacker next to Alex Singleton. And I'm not saying Justin Strnad can step in and, suddenly take over that job. But when you have this concern from these two players, and both of them do have some injury concerns there, seeing Justin Strnad step up and look great. I mean, one of the biggest concerns was him having issues getting off blocks, working downhill against the run. And that's where he's looked best at.
Man, he's a heat-seeking missile out there. It's crazy to see how fast he climbs. He climbs so well into the hole, and he explodes into ball carriers. Him and Jonas Griffith, quite honestly, is another player that needs to be given a lot more praise, and he's been recognized so far from this preseason. But Strnad and Griffith, both of those guys, in terms of what they're doing in the running game, getting out into the flats in the passing game as well, it's so much fun to watch right now.
Yeah, I mean, both of them, we haven't seen a whole lot of them in coverage. What we have seen of Jonas Griffith in coverage hasn't been the best.
Right.
But Justin Strnad, that's what his specialty was supposed to be. We haven't seen it this preseason, so I'm still a little hesitant to crown him anything. But his play against the run, it's been great. Yep. And, on the defensive side of it, for the little bit of coverage that he's had, again, missed one game because of an injury, which is that the greatest thing ever? No. But he's only played 18, 20 snaps, 30 snaps in coverage at most. So we haven't got to see him in coverage a lot. And definitely not against starters. So that for me is something that I still want to see from him. But I do think he's going to make this roster just because of the special team play and because with what he's shown, he has shown as serviceable depth. Now, we still have a little bit of time here. Do you have another hidden gem on the defensive side of the ball?
I do actually. I just find it interesting that both you and I, when we ranked this team, ranked the roster by position, two of the positions of the weakest links have actually had some of the brightest shining stars for the defensive side of the football. Obviously, the inside linebackers with Cernod and Jonas Griffith. The guy that I have in terms of hidden gem, and let's not call him a hidden gem anymore because his play is not only against third and fourth stringers, he's gotten some runs against some ones and twos. Keidron Smith, this undrafted rookie free agent, I forget where he's from, has been a shining light for the Broncos secondary that has a ton of questions, specifically at the safety position. I mean, obviously, Caden Stearns was let go, waived during training camp. Haven't seen a whole bunch of PJ Locke. Haven't seen a whole bunch of Brandon Jones yet. Devin Key, he's been spectacular as well. He's shining very brightly as well, especially as a run defender. He's filling up in gaps, being a solid tackler. He's another heat-seeking missile in terms of what Vance Joseph likes to do from the linebackers and safety position, how those guys fill their gaps. But Keidron Smith, a couple of interceptions there. One was damn near return for a touchdown against the Green Bay Packers. That dude has really been it's going to be really hard to see him get cut. I don't think he's going to. I think that there's a possibility he could be a fifth safety that the Broncos keep on this roster just for his ball hawking skills and his ability as a tackler to just continue to be a quality player for that Broncos secondary, man.
Yeah, and you mentioned those two interceptions. I mean, what better way to play yourself into a roster spot than two interceptions in the preseason? And just to put this in there, it may not seem like a lot, but in 2022 preseason, there were only two players with two interceptions. And in 2023, there were three players with at least two interceptions. One of them had a third. So that is and they've all gone on. I believe they all made the roster. I'd have to double check on that aspect of it. And a couple of them have gone on and to be pretty successful. Now with Keidron Smith, I mean, he's not really seeing action against the ones, but what he is doing to make these interceptions, he's reading the quarterback, he's reading the play, he's diagnosing it, he's putting himself in the proper position, and then finishing the play. I mean, we saw last year multiple times how crucial it is to finish those plays on the defensive side of the ball for the Broncos in both a negative and a positive aspect, and seeing him finish them. And then not just that, but then going beyond that finishing of, hey, I've got the ball now I'm going to try and score. I mean, the vision that he had on one of his returns was absolutely phenomenal. He's out of Kentucky. I think there's a chance for him to be the fourth safety. And depending on how they carry, 10 defensive backs is typically the amount you're looking for, whether it be 6 corners, 4 safeties, or 5 and 5. Maybe they keep an 11th here. But for me right now, I think there's a chance he can edge out JL Skinner because JL Skinner has been pretty rough to watch this preseason.
Inconsistent. So far. Very inconsistent from JL Skinner, which is unfortunate because that's another dude built like a linebacker playing the safety position, ridiculous hyper athlete, good length and good strength. Like he has the goods to be a guy. You just got to be more consistent out there and not just offer only special teams versatility, which at this point is what he is. Defensively, there's been a lot of gaffes from him in the secondary. There's been a lot of missed assignments, a couple missed tackles out there in open space, which you can't have. So JL Skinner is, I don't want to say on the outside looking in, but definitely on the roster bubble. And I think Keidron Smith has done enough to really kind of take that spot away from him.
Yeah. And just real quick, I mean, throwing this out there, talking about these two players, Keidron Smith, he is the highest rated safety in the NFL for this preseason by Pro Football Focus.
Yep.
He has a 90 or sorry, let me put it on the right spot. I'm looking at coverage specifically. He's the highest rated safety in coverage so far this preseason. And overall, he has a 90.7 in coverage, 91.2 overall. JL Skinner, I believe, is sitting in the high 60s. So huge difference there between the two. Very curious to see when the roster cuts come, what happens here at this position. But Keidron Smith, Justin Cernod, they're doing their job on the defense side of the ball. Offensively, DeMontre Jacobs and Calvin Throckmorton. I would be surprised if only 2 of these guys make it. Let me rephrase that and put it the correct way I want it. I would be surprised if all of these guys don't make the roster.
Yep.
I would fully expect that when we get the initial roster, all 4 of these players are on it.
Yep.
One of them in a pretty big role and as a backup swing tackle, one of them as a key special teams player, and the other two finding ways to contribute where they can. But that's going to do it for us, everyone. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below, and we will answer them as soon as we can, as soon as we see them. We will be around doing more videos throughout the season, aiming to bring you at least a couple every single week. I'm Erick Trickel. You can follow me on Twitter at Erick Trickel, and Lance Sanderson. You can follow him at Lance_S_MHH on Twitter. These are great things to do with you, Lance. It's a great way to, try and help fill that hole of not having you on Dove Valley Deep Divers on Friday nights and live pods anymore. Thank you for joining me, everyone, and we will be back with another video coming to you shortly. Leave a like, subscribe, and comment.